The mountain mission. The helicopter blades cut through the thin mountain air as Team Charlie descended into the remote wilderness of Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez checked his gear one final time, his experienced eyes scanning the rocky terrain below. The mission briefing had been simple enough: locate and eliminate a high-value target who had been coordinating attacks on coalition forces from somewhere in these mountains. Rodriguez had been leading SEAL operations for 8 years, and this felt different. Intelligence suggested their target, a bomb maker known as the Ghost, had been operating from a cave system deep in the Hindu Kush Mountains. What made this mission unusual was the complete lack of enemy activity in the area over the past 3 weeks. It was too quiet, too clean. The team consisted of 6 highly trained operators: Rodriguez as team leader, communications specialist Danny Chen, demolitions expert Carlos Santos, medic Tommy Johnson, reconnaissance specialist Jake Miller, and heavy weapons operator Big Jim Patterson. Each man carried specialized equipment suited for the mountainous terrain and the possibility of extended combat. As the helicopter approached the landing zone, Rodriguez noticed something that made his stomach tighten. Through his night vision goggles, he could see the remains of what looked like a small camp about 2 miles from their intended drop point. Smoke was still rising from several spots, suggesting recent activity. He quickly radioed the pilot to circle once more for a better look. The camp appeared to have been attacked recently, possibly within the last 24 hours. Bodies were scattered around burning vehicles, and equipment was strewn across the area. What caught Rodriguez's attention was the precision of the destruction. This wasn't the result of an airstrike or artillery barrage. The vehicles had been disabled with surgical accuracy, and the bodies appeared to have been taken down by small arms fire. "Control, this is Charlie 1. Rodriguez spoke into his radio. "We have eyes on what appears to be a recently attacked enemy position approximately 2 clicks from our LZ. Requesting permission to investigate." The response came back quickly. "Charlie 1, negative on the detour. Your priority remains the primary target. Continue with original mission parameters." Rodriguez acknowledged the order but made a mental note to investigate the site if time permitted. Something about the scene below didn't add up. The attackers had been incredibly efficient, almost surgical in their approach. It reminded him of SEAL tactics, but no friendly forces were supposed to be operating in this area. The helicopter touched down in a small clearing surrounded by jagged rocks and sparse vegetation. The team quickly disembarked and took defensive positions while the aircraft departed. Within minutes, they were alone in the vast wilderness, with only the sound of wind whistling through the mountain peaks. Rodriguez gathered his team around a large boulder that provided cover from potential observation. He spread out a detailed topographical map and reviewed their route to the target area. The cave system they were hunting was approximately 8 miles northeast, accessible only by following a narrow valley that wound between towering rock formations. "Listen up," Rodriguez said, keeping his voice low. "Intelligence suggests our target has been using these caves for at least 6 months. He's got local support and knows this terrain better than we do. Stay alert for booby traps, and remember, this guy didn't earn his nickname by being careless." Chen adjusted his communications equipment and ran a quick systems check. "Comms are green, Sergeant. We've got clear contact with base." Santos examined his demolition charges, ensuring each was properly secured. "If we find those caves, I can seal them permanently. Just give me 5 minutes with the entrance." The team began their trek through the moonless night, using night vision equipment to navigate the treacherous terrain. Rodriguez took point with Miller covering their rear. The path wound upward through loose rock and narrow passages that barely accommodated their equipment. After 2 hours of climbing, they reached a plateau that offered a good view of the surrounding area. Rodriguez called for a brief rest and security halt. While his team hydrated and checked their gear, he studied the landscape ahead through his binoculars. The valley they needed to traverse stretched out before them like a dark ribbon between towering cliffs. It was the perfect place for an ambush, with countless hiding spots and limited escape routes. Rodriguez had navigated similar terrain in Iraq and Syria, but something about this place felt different. It felt watched. Miller, who had been monitoring their rear, crawled up beside Rodriguez. "Sergeant, I've been getting a weird feeling since we landed. It's like someone's been tracking our movement." Rodriguez trusted Miller's instincts. The young SEAL had an almost supernatural ability to sense danger, and his warnings had saved the team on multiple occasions. "What kind of feeling?" Hard to explain, but twice I thought I caught movement in my peripheral vision. When I looked directly, nothing was there. Could be mountain goats or other wildlife, but my gut says otherwise. Rodriguez made the decision to alter their planned route slightly, taking a more indirect path that would keep them away from the most obvious approach routes. If someone was tracking them, he wanted to make their job as difficult as possible. As they prepared to continue their movement, Johnson quietly approached Rodriguez. "Sergeant, I've been thinking about that destroyed camp we saw from the helicopter. The pattern of destruction was too clean for local militants. Someone with serious training hit that position. What are you thinking, Doc? Either we've got unknown friendlies operating in the area, or there's another player in this game that we don't know about." Rodriguez considered this as he studied the terrain ahead. The mission was becoming more complicated by the hour, and they hadn't even reached their primary objective yet. He made another mental note to investigate the destroyed camp on their way back to the extraction point. The team resumed their movement, following a narrow goat trail that hugged the cliff face. The path was treacherous, requiring careful foot placement and constant attention to balance. One wrong step would send a man tumbling hundreds of feet to the rocks below. As they navigated a particularly difficult section, where the trail narrowed to less than 2 feet wide, Chen suddenly froze. He held up a closed fist, the universal signal to stop, and pointed to his ear. The entire team went motionless, listening intently to the sounds of the night. At first, Rodriguez heard nothing unusual, just the wind and the distant call of a night bird. Then he caught it, the faint sound of metal clicking against rock coming from somewhere ahead of them on the trail. Someone else was moving through the darkness, and they were close. Rodriguez hand signaled for his team to take cover positions against the cliff face. Each SEAL melted into the shadows, weapons ready, waiting for whatever was approaching through the night. The sound grew closer, accompanied by the soft scrape of boots on stone. Through his night vision scope, Rodriguez could see a figure moving along the trail about 50 meters ahead. The person was alone, moving with the confident stride of someone very familiar with the terrain. As the figure drew closer, Rodriguez could see it was a man carrying what appeared to be a rifle, but the details remained unclear in the green glow of night vision. The unknown person passed within 20 meters of their position without detecting the hidden SEAL team. Rodriguez watched as the figure continued down the trail, disappearing around a bend in the cliff face. After several minutes of silence, Rodriguez signaled for his team to resume movement, but with heightened caution. Who was the lone figure, and what was he doing in these remote mountains? The questions multiplied as Team Charlie continued their dangerous journey toward their target, unaware that their mission was about to become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The Ghost's trail dawn was breaking over the mountain peaks when Team Charlie finally reached the valley floor. They had been moving for 6 hours through some of the most challenging terrain any of them had encountered. Rodriguez called for an extended rest in a cluster of large boulders that provided both concealment and defensive positions. While his team hydrated and consumed energy bars, Rodriguez studied the intelligence photos of their target area. The cave system was supposedly another 3 miles up a steep ravine that cut deep into the mountainside. According to their briefing, the Ghost had been using the caves as both a bomb-making facility and a training center for local insurgents. Santos crawled over to where Rodriguez was studying the photos. "Sergeant, I've been thinking about the explosive signatures in those intelligence reports. The bombs this guy makes aren't typical insurgent devices. They're sophisticated, with electronic timing systems and shaped charges. That takes serious training and equipment." Rodriguez nodded. He had noticed the same thing during their mission briefing. The Ghost's devices were responsible for destroying several coalition vehicles and causing significant casualties over the past 6 months. The precision and complexity of his bombs suggested professional military training, possibly from a foreign intelligence service. Chen monitored their communications while keeping watch on their back trail. "Base is requesting a sit-rep, Sergeant. They want to know our progress toward the objective. Tell them we're on schedule and moving toward the target area. No enemy contact yet, but we've observed signs of recent activity in the area." As Rodriguez was about to continue the briefing with his team, Miller suddenly tensed up. "Movement 2 o'clock, about 800 meters. He was peering through his spotting scope at a rocky outcropping across the valley. Rodriguez immediately grabbed his binoculars and scanned the area Miller indicated. At first, he saw nothing but rocks and sparse vegetation. Then for just a moment, he caught sight of what looked like a person moving between the rocks. The figure disappeared almost immediately, but Rodriguez had gotten a brief look. "Did you see him?" Miller asked quietly. "Yeah, I saw him. Adult male appears to be carrying a rifle. He knows how to use terrain for concealment." Rodriguez lowered his binoculars and considered their options. Could be a local herder, but herders don't usually carry rifles and move like that. Johnson, who had been treating a minor cut on Patterson's hand, looked up from his medical kit. "That makes 3 times we've detected someone in the area. First the destroyed camp, then the guy on the trail last night, and now this." Rodriguez was beginning to suspect they weren't alone in hunting the ghost. Either another military unit was operating in the area without their knowledge, or there was a local element they hadn't been briefed about. Neither possibility was good news for their mission. The team resumed their movement up the ravine toward the cave system. The path was steep and treacherous, with loose rocks that made silent movement nearly impossible. Rodriguez positioned Miller at the rear of their formation, knowing his keen senses would detect anyone following them. After an hour of climbing, they encountered the first sign that they were approaching the ghost's operational area. Chen discovered a thin wire stretched across the path at ankle height, nearly invisible in the early morning light. Santos examined it carefully and determined it was connected to a simple alarm system rather than an explosive device. "This is meant to give early warning, not to kill," Santos explained as he carefully bypassed the wire. "Our target knows someone might be coming for him." They found 2 more alarm systems over the next half-mile, each one more sophisticated than the last. The final one incorporated a small solar panel and what appeared to be a radio transmitter. Santos was able to disable it without triggering an alert, but the implications were clear. "This guy isn't just hiding in caves," Rodriguez told his team as they crouched behind a fallen tree. "He's got an organized defensive system with early warning capabilities. We need to assume he knows we're coming." The entrance to the cave system was exactly where their intelligence had indicated, tucked into a fold of the mountainside and partially concealed by overhanging rocks. But as they observed the entrance from a concealed position 200 meters away, something seemed wrong. "It's too quiet," Patterson observed, speaking for the first time since they had landed. "If this place is active, where are the guards? Where are the signs of recent use?" Rodriguez studied the cave entrance through his binoculars for 15 minutes, looking for any indication of recent activity. He saw no footprints in the dusty approach, no cigarette butts or other trash that would indicate human presence, no worn paths that would suggest regular foot traffic. Miller had been studying the surrounding terrain and noticed something that made him uneasy. "Sergeant, look at the approaches to that cave entrance. Someone could cover every possible route from the high ground behind us." Rodriguez shifted his binoculars to examine the ridgeline Miller indicated. The rocky outcroppings provided perfect sniper positions with clear fields of fire, covering the entire area around the cave entrance. If the ghost had posted security, those positions would be impossible to approach undetected. "We need to get closer and determine if the caves are occupied before we make our move," Rodriguez decided. "Miller, I want you to work your way around to the left flank and see if you can get a different angle on the entrance. Chen, monitor communications and be ready to call for support if things go bad." As Miller began his flanking movement, Rodriguez noticed something that made his blood run cold. Through his binoculars, he could see fresh gouges in the rock face near the cave entrance. The marks looked like bullet impacts, and they appeared to be recent. Santos had noticed the same thing. "Someone's been shooting at that cave entrance, Sergeant. Look at the pattern. Those shots came from multiple angles, and they're concentrated around what would be defensive positions. The evidence suggested that someone had already attacked the ghost's position, possibly within the last few days. If that was true, their mission might be pointless. The target could already be dead or fled to another location." Rodriguez made the decision to investigate more closely. He signaled for Johnson and Patterson to remain in overwatch positions while he, Santos, and Chen approached the cave entrance. If it was a trap, he wanted to ensure some of his team could provide covering fire or call for extraction. The approach to the caves required crossing 50 meters of open ground with no cover. Rodriguez led the way, moving in short bounds while Santos and Chen provided overwatch. Each step felt like it took forever, and Rodriguez expected to hear the crack of rifle fire at any moment. When they reached the cave entrance, Rodriguez immediately noticed the smell. It was the unmistakable odor of death, mixed with the acrid scent of explosives and gunpowder. Someone had definitely died here recently, and there had been significant fighting. Santos examined the entrance while Rodriguez and Chen provided security. Multiple entry points, connecting tunnels, and what looks like prepared defensive positions, Santos reported quietly. This place was set up for a long-term operation. As they prepared to enter the cave system, Chen suddenly grabbed Rodriguez's arm. "Sergeant, I'm picking up radio chatter on one of the insurgent frequencies. Someone's talking about the American sniper and asking for instructions." Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. American sniper? Were they being hunted by one of their own people? Or was there another explanation for what they had been observing? Before he could process this information fully, Miller's voice came through their radio with urgent intensity. "All Charlie elements, I've got movement on the ridgeline. Multiple personnel in fighting positions. I think we're about to have company." Rodriguez realized their mission had just become exponentially more dangerous. Not only were they hunting the ghost in his own territory, but they appeared to be walking into a situation involving unknown American personnel and possibly hostile local forces. As he signaled for his team to prepare for potential combat, Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled into something much larger and more complex than a simple elimination mission. The questions were multiplying faster than the answers, and each new piece of information made the situation more dangerous. The ghost might be the least of their worries now. The ambush, the first shot came from the ridgeline, the sharp crack of a rifle echoing off the mountain walls. Rodriguez heard the distinctive whistle of a bullet passing overhead and immediately dropped behind the nearest cover. His years of combat experience kicked in instantly, and he began analyzing their tactical situation even as more shots followed. "Contact, contact." Miller's voice crackled through their radios. "Multiple shooters on the high ground, approximately 6 to 8 personnel. They've got us in a crossfire." Rodriguez could see muzzle flashes from at least 4 different positions along the ridge. The shooters were well positioned and disciplined, firing controlled bursts rather than spraying bullets wildly. This wasn't the typical insurgent ambush they had encountered in other operations. Santos had taken cover behind a large boulder near the cave entrance and was returning fire with his rifle. "These guys know what they're doing, Sergeant." Professional spacing, coordinated fire control. This isn't local militia. Chen had found a defensive position that allowed him to maintain radio communications while still engaging the enemy. Base, this is Charlie 1. We are under attack at the primary objective. Multiple hostiles in elevated positions. Requesting immediate air support." The response came back quickly but wasn't what Rodriguez wanted to hear. Charlie 1, negative on immediate air support. Nearest close air support is 30 minutes out. You are authorized to disengage and move to alternate extraction point. Rodriguez assessed their situation rapidly. They were pinned down in a valley with limited cover, facing an unknown number of well-trained opponents who held the high ground. Withdrawal was the tactically sound decision, but something about this ambush bothered him. "Miller, what's your assessment of enemy strength and positions?" Rodriguez called through his radio while sending accurate rifle fire toward the ridgeline. "I count at least 7 distinct firing positions, but I think there might be more. They're using military small arms, not the usual AK-47s we see from insurgents." "Wait." Miller's voice paused as he observed something through his scope. "Sergeant, one of the shooters just moved positions and I got a good look at his gear. He's carrying American equipment." This information sent a chill through Rodriguez. Were they being attacked by American personnel? Had they stumbled into a classified operation they weren't supposed to know about? Or had insurgents somehow acquired American military equipment? Patterson had positioned himself where he could bring his heavy machine gun to bear on the ridge line. "Give me the word, Sergeant, and I'll suppress those positions while we bound out of here." But Rodriguez was studying the pattern of enemy fire and noticing something strange. Despite having clear shots at his team's positions, the enemy shooters seemed to be deliberately missing. Their fire was accurate enough to keep the SEALs pinned down, but not accurate enough to cause casualties. It was almost as if they were trying to drive Rodriguez's team away rather than kill them. "Hold your fire for a moment," Rodriguez ordered his team. "I want to see what they do." The enemy fire continued for several more seconds, then gradually tapered off. Rodriguez could see movement along the ridgeline as the shooters repositioned, but no one was advancing toward their position. After 2 minutes, the shooting stopped entirely. "Charlie Elements, report status," Rodriguez called softly into his radio. "Miller here, no casualties, plenty of ammo remaining. Chen, good to go. Radio equipment undamaged, Santos all green. Demo charges secure. Johnson, no casualties to treat, medical supplies intact. Patterson, ready to rock and roll, Sergeant." Rodriguez made a decision that went against standard operating procedures but followed his instincts. Instead of immediately withdrawing, he wanted to investigate the cave system and determine what had happened to the ghost. The ambush felt like a diversion, designed to drive them away from something important. "We're going to check those caves before we withdraw," Rodriguez announced to his team. "Whatever's in there, somebody doesn't want us to find it. That makes me very interested in taking a look." Santos looked at Rodriguez with concern. "Sergeant, we could be walking into another trap. Those shooters are still up there and they know exactly where we are." "I don't think they want to kill us," Rodriguez replied. "If they did, we'd already be dead. Someone's playing a different game here, and I want to know what it is." Rodriguez decided to take point and enter the cave system himself, leaving his team in defensive positions outside. If it was a trap, he didn't want to lose his entire team to whatever was waiting in the darkness. The cave entrance was larger than it appeared from outside, opening into a natural chamber about the size of a small room. Rodriguez moved carefully, using his flashlight to illuminate the interior while keeping his rifle ready. The smell of death was stronger inside, and he could see why. 3 bodies lay against the far wall of the cave, and it was immediately clear they had been dead for at least several days. 2 appeared to be local men, probably in their 30s, wearing the typical clothing of Afghan mountain dwellers. The 3rd body was different, a man in his 50s wearing what appeared to be military-style clothing and tactical gear. Rodriguez examined the bodies without disturbing the scene. All 3 had been killed by gunshot wounds, and the accuracy of the shooting suggested a skilled marksman. The older man in tactical gear had been shot once through the head, while the 2 locals had each been shot twice in the chest. But it was what Rodriguez found next to the bodies that made his blood run cold. Scattered around the cave floor were the components of several improvised explosive devices in various stages of completion: electronic timers, plastic explosives, detonators, and detailed diagrams showing how to construct sophisticated bombs. This was definitely the Ghost's workshop, and these were probably his assistants. Someone had beaten Team Charlie to their target and eliminated him before the SEALs could complete their mission. But who had the capability and the knowledge to track down the Ghost in his own stronghold? Rodriguez photographed everything he could see with his tactical camera, knowing the intelligence value of the bomb-making materials and techniques. As he was documenting the scene, he noticed something that made him pause. On a small table near the cave wall was a piece of paper with what appeared to be a message written in English. The note was brief and to the point. "The Ghost has been eliminated. His bomb-making operation is terminated. American forces should withdraw from this area immediately. This is not a threat, but a warning for your own safety." Rodriguez read the message twice, trying to process its implications. Someone who spoke English had killed the Ghost and his assistants, then left a warning for American forces. The handwriting was neat and precise, suggesting education and military training. As Rodriguez was about to leave the cave, he heard Chen's voice through his radio. "Sergeant, we've got movement coming up the valley. Multiple personnel, approximately a half-mile out and moving in our direction." Rodriguez quickly exited the cave and rejoined his team. Through his binoculars, he could see a group of approximately 12 men moving up the valley in a tactical formation. They were still too distant to identify, but their movement patterns suggested military training. "That's not local militia," Miller observed, watching the approaching group through his spotting scope. "These guys are moving like they know what they're doing. Professional spacing, proper overwatch procedures, coordinated advancement." Rodriguez realized they were potentially caught between the shooters on the ridgeline and this new group approaching from the valley floor. Their tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly, and it was time to implement their withdrawal plan. "All Charlie elements, we're moving to extraction point Alpha. Miller, you've got rear guard. Patterson, you're on point. Move fast but stay quiet. We don't want to start a running gun battle in these mountains. As his team prepared to withdraw, Rodriguez took one final look at the cave entrance. Someone had eliminated their target and cleaned up his bomb-making operation, but they had also sent a clear message that American forces weren't welcome in this area. The question that haunted Rodriguez as they began their withdrawal was simple but troubling. Who had the capability and the motivation to conduct this operation, and why didn't the American military know about it? The answers to those questions would determine whether Team Charlie had just witnessed a successful counterterrorism operation or stumbled into something much more dangerous and complex than anyone had anticipated. The pursuit team. Charlie moved through the mountain terrain with practiced efficiency, but Rodriguez could sense they were being followed. Every 100 meters, Miller would drop back and observe their trail for signs of pursuit. Each time he confirmed what Rodriguez already suspected. Multiple groups were tracking their movement through the wilderness. "Sergeant, we've got at least 2 separate elements following us," Miller reported as they paused to rest in a cluster of large boulders. "One group is maybe half a mile behind us, moving carefully and staying hidden. The other group is paralleling our route along the ridgeline to our north." Patterson, who was pulling security on their left flank, added his own observation. "I keep catching glimpses of movement on the high ground. Whoever these people are, they know how to use terrain to their advantage." Rodriguez studied his map and considered their options. The original extraction point was still 4 miles away through difficult terrain. At their current pace, it would take at least 3 hours to reach, assuming they didn't encounter any obstacles or enemy contact. But their pursuers seemed content to track them rather than engage, which suggested they had a different plan. Chen had been monitoring radio communications and picked up concerning intelligence. "Sergeant, I'm hearing chatter on multiple frequencies. Some of it's in English, some in local dialects. It sounds like there are several different groups operating in this area, and they're all talking about us." "What kind of chatter?" Rodriguez asked while scanning the terrain ahead with his binoculars. "Hard to make out everything, but I heard references to the SEAL team and something about keeping them alive until the meeting." "That doesn't sound good." Rodriguez felt the situation slipping further out of control. Not only had their primary mission been completed by unknown personnel, but now multiple groups seemed to be coordinating their movements. The reference to keeping them alive suggested they were valuable for some reason, beyond just being enemy targets. Santos had been examining some tracks they had crossed and made an interesting discovery. "Sergeant, take a look at these boot prints. Military issue, size 11, with a distinctive wear pattern on the left heel. These same prints were around the cave entrance where we found the ghost's body." Rodriguez examined the tracks Santos had identified. The prints were clear in the soft earth, and they definitely belonged to someone wearing American military boots. But the tracks were at least 2 days old, which meant whoever made them had been operating in the area well before Team Charlie's arrival. "Someone's been watching this whole operation from the beginning," Rodriguez concluded. "They knew about the ghost, they knew about his cave system, and they probably knew we were coming." As they prepared to continue their movement toward the extraction point, Johnson made an observation that changed everything. "Sergeant, I've been thinking about that note we found in the cave. The handwriting was too neat, too careful. It was written by someone who wanted us to find it and read it." Rodriguez pulled out his tactical camera and reviewed the photograph he had taken of the note. Johnson was right. The handwriting was deliberately clear and easy to read, as if the author wanted to ensure there would be no misunderstanding of the message. "So someone eliminated our target, cleaned up his operation, and left us a message," Rodriguez said thoughtfully. "The question is whether they're trying to help us or manipulate us." The answer came sooner than expected. As Team Charlie crested a small ridge, they found themselves looking down into a narrow valley, where a single figure was visible approximately 300 meters away. The person was standing in the open, apparently waiting for them to arrive. Miller immediately focused his spotting scope on the figure. Adult male, approximately 6 feet tall, military bearing. He's carrying a rifle, but it's slung across his back. No immediate threat posture, but he's definitely waiting for us. Rodriguez studied the figure through his own binoculars. The man was wearing civilian hiking clothes, but his posture and the way he held himself screamed military training. More importantly, he seemed completely comfortable being exposed in the open, which suggested either supreme confidence or a trap. "Could be the guy who's been tracking us," Patterson observed. or it could be bait to draw us into an ambush. Chen tried to raise the unknown individual on various radio frequencies but received no response. Either he doesn't have communications gear, or he's not interested in talking to us remotely. Rodriguez made the decision that would define the rest of their mission. Despite every tactical instinct telling him to avoid the obvious trap, he needed answers about what was happening in these mountains. We're going to make contact. Miller, I want you positioned where you can provide overwatch. Everyone else, stay alert but don't look threatening unless things go sideways. As Team Charlie descended into the valley, the lone figure remained motionless, waiting for them to approach. Rodriguez could see more details as they got closer. The man appeared to be in his 40s with graying hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent considerable time outdoors. His rifle was a high-end precision weapon, not the standard equipment issued to regular military units. When they were within 50 meters, the man finally moved. He raised his right hand in a greeting gesture and called out in a clear American accent, "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I've been waiting for you to get here." Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. How did this stranger know his name and rank? He signaled for his team to halt and spread out into a defensive formation while he continued forward alone. "You seem to know who I am," Rodriguez called back. "Mind returning the favor?" The man smiled and slowly reached into his jacket pocket, moving deliberately to avoid appearing threatening. He pulled out what appeared to be a military identification card and held it up. "Master Sergeant William Ghost Thompson, United States Army Special Forces. Though I suppose I should mention that I've been officially dead for about 3 years now." Rodriguez studied the ID card from a distance, noting that it appeared genuine but was clearly outdated. The man claiming to be Thompson looked older than the photo on the card, and there was something in his eyes that spoke of experiences beyond normal military service. "If you're dead, what are you doing in these mountains?" Rodriguez asked, keeping his rifle ready but not directly threatening. "Same thing you were supposed to be doing," Thompson replied. "Hunting the ghost. Difference is I've been hunting him for a lot longer than you have, and I finally caught him 3 days ago." The pieces began falling into place in Rodriguez's mind. The destroyed insurgent camp they had seen from the helicopter, the mysterious figure on the mountain trail, the professional elimination of the ghost and his assistants. It had all been the work of this one man operating alone in the wilderness. "Why reveal yourself now?" Rodriguez asked. "You could have let us complete our mission and withdraw without ever knowing you existed." Thompson's expression became serious. "Because your mission was blown from the start. The ghost knew you were coming, and he had prepared a surprise that would have killed your entire team. I eliminated him and his people to prevent that, but there are still other elements in the area that want to use you as bargaining chips." As if to emphasize his point, Chen's voice came through Rodriguez's radio with urgent intensity. "Sergeant, I'm picking up radio chatter indicating multiple groups are converging on our position. We've got maybe 10 minutes before this valley becomes very crowded." Thompson heard the radio transmission and nodded grimly. That would be the local warlord's men, along with some foreign operatives who have been trying to capture American Special Operations personnel for months. They've been using the Ghost's bomb-making operation as bait. Rodriguez realized they were in the middle of a complex trap that had been months in the making. The Ghost's bombing campaign had been designed not just to cause casualties, but to draw in American Special Operations teams that could be captured and used for propaganda purposes or prisoner exchanges. "So what do you suggest we do about it?" Rodriguez asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Thompson unslung his rifle and checked the action. "We fight our way out together, or we all end up as prisoners. Your choice, Sergeant, but I'd recommend making it quickly." The sound of vehicles approaching from multiple directions made the decision for them. Team Charlie was about to face their most challenging battle yet, and their only ally was a man who was supposed to be dead. The battle. The first vehicles appeared at the mouth of the valley just as Rodriguez was processing Thompson's warning. 3 pickup trucks loaded with armed men were approaching from the south, while the sound of more engines indicated additional forces were moving in from other directions. Rodriguez quickly assessed their tactical situation and realized they were about to be surrounded. "All Charlie elements, defensive positions now," Rodriguez commanded his team. "We've got multiple hostile vehicles approaching from multiple directions. This is going to get ugly fast." Thompson moved with practiced efficiency, taking a position behind a large rock that provided cover while offering clear fields of fire toward the approaching vehicles. Rodriguez noted that the older soldier moved like a man who had been fighting alone for years. Every movement was calculated. Every position was chosen for maximum tactical advantage. "Sergeant, you need to know something about these people," Thompson called out while preparing his rifle. "The local warlord, Hekmat Shah, has been working with foreign intelligence operatives to capture American personnel. They've got at least 40 fighters in the area, and they're well equipped." Patterson had positioned his machine gun where it could sweep the valley floor. 40 fighters? "We're seriously outnumbered here." "Numbers don't matter if you know how to use the terrain," Thompson replied calmly. "I've been studying this valley for weeks. There are choke points where we can funnel their attack and reduce their numerical advantage." Miller had found a sniper position on the valley wall and was already acquiring targets. "I count 12 fighters in the first 3 vehicles. More trucks approaching from the east, maybe 200 meters out." Chen was frantically working his radio, trying to contact their base for support. Control, this is Charlie 1. We are under attack by superior numbers at coordinates." He rattled off their position and requested immediate air support. The response was immediate, but not encouraging. "Charlie 1, nearest air support is still 25 minutes out. You are authorized to use all necessary force to defend yourselves. Hold your position if possible." 25 minutes might as well be 25 hours, Santos muttered as he prepared his demolition charges. "We need to thin out their numbers before they can organize a coordinated assault." Thompson had been studying the approaching vehicles through his rifle scope and made a tactical observation. "The lead vehicle has someone important in it, probably Shah himself. If we can take him out early, it might disrupt their command and control." Rodriguez appreciated having someone with local knowledge, but he needed to establish clear command authority. "I'm grateful for your help, Thompson, but this is still my operation. What do you recommend?" "Let them get closer before we open fire," Thompson replied without taking his eye off his scope. "They're expecting to find a small SEAL team that's been running and hiding. They don't know about me, and they don't know we've chosen to make a stand here." The wisdom of Thompson's suggestion became clear as the vehicles continued their approach. The fighters were sitting upright in the truck beds, weapons held casually, talking among themselves. They weren't expecting serious resistance. Miller's voice came through the radio with precise target information. "I have the driver of the lead vehicle. Clean shot, range 200 meters. Hold fire until I give the command," Rodriguez replied. "We hit them all at once, then displace to secondary positions before they can organize a response." Thompson added his own targeting information. "I've got the man in the passenger seat of the lead truck. Based on his position and the way the others are deferring to him, I'd say that's our primary target." The vehicles were now within optimal range. Rodriguez could see the faces of individual fighters and noted they were carrying a mix of weapons. Some had modern assault rifles, while others carried older equipment. What concerned him was that several of the men appeared to be wearing body armor and carrying military-grade communications equipment. "These aren't just local militia," Johnson observed from his position. "Some of these guys have professional equipment and training." "Foreign advisors," Thompson explained. "Shah has been getting support from outside sources. That's how he knew about your mission and could set up this trap." Rodriguez made the decision to initiate contact. "All Charlie elements on my mark." The valley erupted in gunfire as the SEAL team opened up on the approaching vehicles. Miller's first shot took out the driver of the lead truck, causing it to veer off the trail and crash into a boulder. Patterson's machine gun raked the second vehicle, killing or wounding several fighters before they could dismount. Thompson's precision rifle spoke once, and the man Rodriguez had assumed was Shah jerked backward and fell from the truck. The psychological effect on the remaining fighters was immediate. They began scrambling for cover instead of organizing a coordinated assault. But the enemy force was larger and better prepared than Rodriguez had initially assessed. Even as the first 3 vehicles were disabled, more trucks appeared from multiple directions. The valley began filling with hostile fighters who quickly took cover and began returning disciplined fire. "Contact left," Chen called out as a group of fighters attempted to flank their position from the east side of the valley. Santos engaged them with his rifle while Johnson provided medical cover for any casualties. Rodriguez realized they couldn't hold their current positions indefinitely. "Thompson, you mentioned choke points. Where do we need to move?" "There's a narrow draw about 100 meters to our north," Thompson replied while engaging targets with his precision rifle. If we can reach it, we can force them to attack us through a bottleneck. The movement to the new position required careful coordination under fire. Rodriguez divided his team into two groups. Miller, Santos, and Johnson would move first, while he, Chen, Patterson, and Thompson provided covering fire. Once the first group was in position, they would reverse roles. The movement was executed successfully, but not without cost. Johnson took a grazing wound to his left arm, and Chen's radio equipment was damaged by enemy fire. They were now cut off from outside support and facing an enemy force that continued to grow as more vehicles arrived. From their new position in the narrow draw, the tactical situation improved significantly. The enemy could only approach from one direction, and Patterson's machine gun commanded the entire approach route. Thompson positioned himself where he could engage targets at longer range, while Rodriguez coordinated the defense. "This is better," Rodriguez assessed as he watched enemy fighters attempting to advance up the draw. "We can hold this position longer, but we're still outnumbered and running low on ammunition." Thompson had been counting enemy casualties and made an encouraging observation. "We've taken out at least 15 of them, including several who appeared to be leaders. Their assault is becoming less coordinated." But even as he spoke, Rodriguez could see the enemy adapting to their new defensive position. Small groups were working their way up both sides of the draw, attempting to gain positions where they could fire down into the SEAL team's location. "We've got climbers on both flanks," Miller reported from his overwatch position. "They're trying to get above us." Rodriguez knew they couldn't stay in their current position much longer. The enemy had superior numbers and was using sound tactics to neutralize their defensive advantages. They needed to either eliminate more of the enemy force or find a way to break contact and withdraw. "Thompson, how well do you know this terrain? Is there another way out of this valley?" Thompson studied the surrounding mountains while continuing to engage targets. "There's a goat trail that leads up the back of this draw. It's steep and exposed, but it might be our only option if we can't break their attack." Santos had been monitoring their ammunition situation and provided a sobering assessment. "We've got maybe 10 more minutes of sustained fire before we start running critically low. After that, it's going to get very interesting." Rodriguez made the hard decision that every combat leader eventually faces. They couldn't win this fight through firepower alone. They needed to use superior tactics and training to even the odds. It was time to stop playing defense and take the fight to the enemy. "All Charlie elements prepare for assault. We're going to hit them before they expect it and break their attack. Thompson, can you provide precision fire support?" Thompson's response was immediate and confident. "Just point me toward the targets that need to disappear." As Rodriguez prepared his team for what might be their final assault, he couldn't help but admire the professionalism of the man who had appeared from nowhere to fight alongside them. Dead or alive, officially or unofficially, Thompson was proving to be exactly the kind of ally they needed in this desperate situation. The counterattack, Rodriguez's decision to go on the offensive, caught the enemy completely off guard. Instead of continuing to defend their position in the narrow draw, Team Charlie launched a coordinated assault that shattered the enemy's expectations and threw their attack into chaos. The plan was simple, but effective. Miller and Thompson would provide precision fire to eliminate key targets and suppress enemy positions, while Rodriguez led Santos, Patterson, and Johnson in a direct assault on the main enemy concentration. Chen would coordinate communications and call in their movements to prevent friendly fire incidents. "Remember, we're not trying to kill everyone," Rodriguez briefed his team as they prepared for the assault. "We need to break their will to fight and create confusion. Hit hard, move fast, and don't get caught in extended firefights." Thompson had identified the enemy's command element based on their radio equipment and positioning. "There's a group of 5 men behind that large boulder at the mouth of the draw. They're coordinating the flanking movements. Take them out and the rest will lose direction." Miller positioned himself where he could observe the entire battlefield and provide accurate fire support. "I've got clear shots on the climbers attempting to flank us from the east side. Once you start your assault, I'll keep them pinned down." Rodriguez looked at his watch and noted they had been in contact for nearly 15 minutes. Air support should be arriving within 10 minutes, but they couldn't wait that long. The enemy was close to completing their flanking movements, and staying defensive would get them all killed. "Execute in 30 seconds, Rodriguez announced to his team. "Patterson, you lead with the machine gun and suppress everything you can see. Santos, you're responsible for taking out any vehicles that are still operational. Johnson, stay close to me and be ready to treat casualties. Thompson's rifle spoke first, the precise shot eliminating one of the enemy commanders before the man could react. This was the signal for the general assault, and Team Charlie erupted from their defensive positions like a force of nature. Patterson's machine gun raked the enemy positions with devastating effect, forcing fighters to seek cover and disrupting their coordinated movements. Santos used his grenades to disable 2 more vehicles and eliminate a group of fighters who had been preparing to assault their previous position. Rodriguez moved with his pistol and rifle, engaging targets of opportunity while directing his team's movements. The key to their success was maintaining momentum and not allowing the enemy time to reorganize and respond effectively. Left flank is clear, Johnson called out as he treated a wounded enemy fighter who had surrendered rather than continue fighting. The psychological effect of the unexpected assault was exactly what Rodriguez had hoped for. Thompson continued to provide precision fire support, eliminating enemy fighters who attempted to rally their comrades or organize resistance. His accuracy was phenomenal. Rodriguez counted at least 8 confirmed kills in the first 3 minutes of the assault. But the enemy force was larger than they had initially estimated, and not all of the fighters were intimidated by the SEAL team's aggressive tactics. A group of approximately 10 men, better equipped and trained than the others, established a defensive position behind several vehicles and began returning organized fire. "We've got a hard target at 2 o'clock, Rodriguez called out to his team. "These guys aren't running and they know how to fight." Miller had been observing this group through his scope and provided tactical intelligence. "They're wearing body armor and carrying military communications equipment. Definitely not local fighters, probably the foreign advisors Thompson mentioned." The battle now focused on this core group of professional fighters who were determined to complete their mission of capturing American personnel. Rodriguez realized these men wouldn't be intimidated or confused like the local militia. They would have to be defeated through superior tactics and marksmanship. Thompson had reached the same conclusion and began working his way around to a flanking position. "Give me 3 minutes to get into position, then hit them from the front. I'll take them from the side when they're focused on you." Santos used his remaining grenades to suppress the enemy position while Rodriguez and Patterson prepared for their frontal assault. Johnson remained in a covered position where he could provide medical support if anyone was wounded during the attack. The coordinated assault on the professional fighters was the most dangerous part of the entire battle. These men were well-trained, well-equipped, and determined to complete their mission. They returned accurate fire and attempted to maneuver against the SEAL team's positions. Thompson's flanking attack proved decisive. His precision rifle eliminated 3 of the professional fighters before they realized they were being attacked from a different direction. The psychological effect of being caught in a crossfire broke their resistance, and the remaining fighters began withdrawing toward their vehicles. "Enemy is withdrawing," Chen called out as he observed the battlefield through his binoculars. Multiple personnel moving toward the vehicles at the south end of the valley. Rodriguez made the decision not to pursue the withdrawing enemy. His team had accomplished their primary objective of breaking the attack and creating an opportunity to withdraw. Pursuing fleeing enemies through unknown terrain would expose them to unnecessary risks. "All Charlie elements, hold positions and prepare for withdrawal," Rodriguez commanded. "We've broken their attack, but there might be more enemy forces in the area." As the gunfire tapered off and the immediate threat diminished, Rodriguez took stock of their situation. Johnson had treated his own wound and was ready for movement. Chen's radio equipment was partially functional, enough to maintain contact with their base. Everyone else had minor injuries but remained combat effective. Thompson approached Rodriguez's position, his rifle still ready but no longer actively engaging targets. "That was well executed, Sergeant. Your team fights like they've been together for years." "We have been," Rodriguez replied while scanning the battlefield for signs of continued enemy activity. "But I have to ask, where did you learn to shoot like that? That was some of the most accurate fire I've ever seen in combat." Thompson's expression became distant, as if he was remembering something he would rather forget. 3 years of hunting alone in these mountains teaches you to make every shot count. When you're outnumbered 100 to 1, you don't get second chances." Chen had managed to re-establish communications with their base and received welcome news. "Sergeant, air support is inbound. Estimated time of arrival 8 minutes. Also, extraction helicopters are being diverted to our location. Rodriguez felt a surge of relief but knew they weren't safe yet. The enemy had withdrawn but not fled, and there could be additional hostile forces in the area. They needed to reach a secure landing zone where helicopters could extract them safely. Thompson, what's the best route to a helicopter landing zone from here? Rodriguez asked while his team prepared for movement. There's a flat area about half a mile north of here that would work for helicopter operations, Thompson replied. But we'll have to cross 2 ridgelines to reach it, and there are plenty of places for ambushes along the way. Rodriguez studied his map and confirmed Thompson's assessment. The route to the landing zone would expose them to observation and potential attack from multiple directions, but staying in their current location wasn't an option. The enemy knew exactly where they were and could bring in reinforcements. We move in 5 minutes, Rodriguez decided. Thompson, I'm offering you extraction with my team. After what you've done here, you've earned it. Thompson considered the offer for several seconds before responding. I appreciate that, Sergeant, but my work in these mountains isn't finished yet. There are still threats out there that need to be eliminated. Rodriguez wasn't surprised by Thompson's response, but he felt obligated to make the offer. The man had saved their lives and fought alongside them like a member of their team. He deserved the opportunity to return to civilization if he wanted it. As Team Charlie prepared for their final movement to the extraction point, Rodriguez couldn't help but wonder about Thompson's story. How had an officially dead Special Forces soldier ended up operating alone in the Afghan mountains? What had driven him to spend 3 years hunting terrorists in complete isolation? The answers to those questions would have to wait. Right now, Rodriguez's priority was getting his team safely to the extraction point and out of these dangerous mountains. But he suspected this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed with the ghost-like figure who had emerged from the wilderness to fight alongside them. The extraction. The movement to the helicopter landing zone proved to be more challenging than Rodriguez had anticipated. Despite their tactical victory in the valley, enemy forces were still active in the area, and the terrain provided numerous opportunities for ambushes. Thompson's knowledge of the local geography proved invaluable as he guided them along routes that avoided the most dangerous areas. There's a watchtower about half a mile to our east, Thompson warned as they crossed the first ridgeline. It's been abandoned for months, but someone could be using it to observe our movement. Miller checked the tower through his spotting scope and confirmed it appeared empty, but Rodriguez decided to take a more circuitous route anyway. They couldn't afford to take unnecessary risks when they were so close to extraction. As they descended into a small valley that would lead them to the landing zone, Chen received an update from their base that changed everything. Sergeant, air support is overhead and reporting multiple enemy vehicles converging on our extraction point. The helicopters are holding off until the area can be secured. Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. After everything they had been through, the enemy was making one final attempt to prevent their escape. He studied the terrain ahead and realized they were walking into another potential trap. How many vehicles? Rodriguez asked while signaling for his team to take defensive positions. Air support reports at least 6 trucks with approximately 40 fighters total, Chen replied. They're setting up positions around the landing zone like they knew exactly where we were going. Thompson had been listening to the radio traffic and made an observation that sent chills down Rodriguez's spine. They did know exactly where you were going. Your extraction point was probably compromised from the beginning, just like your original mission. The implications were staggering. If Thompson was correct, then someone with access to classified American military operations had been feeding information to the enemy. The entire mission had been a setup designed to capture or kill a SEAL team. So what do you recommend? Rodriguez asked Thompson while his team prepared for what might be their final battle. There's an alternate landing zone about 2 miles further north, Thompson replied after consulting a hand-drawn map he pulled from his pack. It's smaller and more dangerous for helicopter operations, but the enemy probably doesn't know about it. Santos examined Thompson's map and noted the detail and accuracy of the hand-drawn features. You made this yourself? How long have you been operating in this area? Long enough to know every trail, every cave, and every hiding spot within 50 miles, Thompson replied. I've had 3 years to study this terrain while hunting the people who killed my team. This was the first personal information Thompson had revealed about his background, and Rodriguez wanted to know more. But their immediate survival took priority over satisfying curiosity about Thompson's mysterious past. Chen received another radio update that added urgency to their situation. Sergeant, air support reports the enemy vehicles are moving away from the original landing zone and spreading out to search the area. They're actively hunting for us. Rodriguez made the decision to attempt reaching Thompson's alternate landing zone. It meant additional exposure to enemy forces and more difficult terrain. But staying in their current location would eventually lead to discovery and another battle they might not win. All Charlie elements, we're moving to alternate extraction point, Rodriguez announced to his team. Stay alert for enemy patrols, and be ready to fight if we make contact. The route to the alternate landing zone required crossing 3 more ridgelines and traversing 2 valleys where they would be exposed to observation from multiple directions. Thompson took point, using his intimate knowledge of the terrain to guide them along the safest possible path. As they moved through the mountainous wilderness, Rodriguez had time to consider the broader implications of their mission. If Thompson was correct about the intelligence leak, then other American operations might be compromised as well. Enemy forces could be preparing traps for future missions, using classified information to predict military movements. Miller, who had been providing rear security, reported concerning developments. Sergeant, I can see dust clouds from at least 3 different directions. Multiple vehicle columns are moving through the area, and they seem to be coordinating their search patterns. Thompson confirmed Miller's observation and added his own analysis. They're using standard search techniques, establishing a perimeter and then contracting it systematically. We probably have 30 minutes before they reach our current position. The alternate landing zone was still over an hour away at their current pace, which meant they would be discovered before reaching safety unless something changed the tactical situation. Rodriguez realized they needed to either eliminate some of the searching enemy forces or create a diversion that would draw attention away from their route. Thompson, what would happen if we took out one of those vehicle columns? Rodriguez asked while studying the terrain ahead. It would definitely get their attention and probably draw reinforcements to that location. Thompson replied thoughtfully, but it would also reveal our position and bring the entire enemy force down on us. Santos had been examining his remaining demolition charges and made a suggestion. What if we didn't attack them directly? I could set up some charges along one of the roads they're using. When they detonate, it would look like we're moving in that direction. Rodriguez liked the idea but realized it would require splitting his team, which violated basic small unit tactics. However, their current situation called for unconventional solutions to problems that didn't appear in military textbooks. Santos, how long would you need to set up the charges? Give me 10 minutes and I can create a diversion that will keep them busy for hours. Santos replied confidently. Rodriguez made another difficult command decision. Santos and Johnson set up your diversion. The rest of us will continue toward the landing zone. You catch up when you're finished. Thompson objected to the plan immediately. Sergeant, splitting your team is exactly what they want you to do. It makes you easier to defeat in detail. I know the risks, Rodriguez replied, but we're going to be discovered anyway if we don't do something to change the situation. As Santos and Johnson prepared their demolition charges, Chen received welcome news over the radio. Sergeant, air support is requesting permission to engage the enemy vehicle columns. They're asking for target designation. Rodriguez realized this could be the solution to their tactical problem. Instead of splitting his team to create a diversion, they could use air power to eliminate the enemy search parties while they continued toward the extraction point. Approved, Rodriguez replied immediately. Tell them to hit the column that's closest to our current position first, then work their way through the others. The sound of jet engines overhead was followed by the distinctive whistle of incoming bombs. Rodriguez watched through his binoculars as explosions erupted across the valley floor, destroying enemy vehicles and scattering their search parties. Thompson watched the airstrikes with professional appreciation. That should buy us the time we need to reach the alternate landing zone. With the immediate threat eliminated, Team Charlie resumed their movement toward extraction. The alternate landing zone was exactly as Thompson had described, smaller and more challenging for helicopter operations, but completely unknown to enemy forces. As they established a defensive perimeter around the landing zone, Rodriguez finally had the opportunity to ask Thompson the question that had been bothering him since their first meeting. Thompson, what really happened to your team 3 years ago? Thompson's expression became distant and painful. We were betrayed by someone with access to our operational plans. My entire team was killed in an ambush that should have been impossible. I was the only survivor, and I've been hunting the people responsible ever since. The sound of approaching helicopters interrupted their conversation, but Rodriguez understood why Thompson had chosen to remain in the mountains rather than return to civilization. He was seeking justice for his fallen comrades, and he wouldn't stop until he found it. As the extraction helicopters landed and Team Charlie prepared to board, Thompson melted back into the wilderness as mysteriously as he had appeared. Rodriguez watched him disappear among the rocks and sparse vegetation, knowing that somewhere in these mountains, the hunt would continue. The mission had been completed successfully, but not in the way anyone had planned. The ghost was dead, his bomb-making operation was destroyed, and Team Charlie had survived an elaborate trap designed to capture or kill them. But the biggest revelation was the existence of Thompson, a phantom warrior operating alone in the wilderness, dispensing his own brand of justice to those who threatened American forces. As the helicopters lifted off and carried Team Charlie away from the dangerous mountains, Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that their paths would cross with Thompson again. In a war where the enemy could predict American movements and plan elaborate traps, having a ghost on their side might be exactly what they needed. The wilderness kept its secrets, but sometimes those secrets fought back.